Welcome back and thank you for staying with us this beautiful Saturday morning. Being a youth in Nigeria comes with a lot of pressure. Tell me about it. There's the thinking deficit to immoralities, forced lifestyles to pride, bribery to corruption, ignorance to poverty and hunger. Nigerian youths are in one way or the other victims of these active dilemmas. So, how can we get the best out of the Nigerian youth in spite of all these things that we have just listed that they have to confront? How do we know the signs when our youth are going astray? Okay, these are all questions we're going to ask our panel this morning, who join us virtually. It's my pleasure to welcome a leadership consultant, Mr. Linus Okorie. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here this morning.
And we also have a social engineering practitioner, Joyce Daniels. Good morning, Joyce.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Yes, I mean, being a youth in Nigeria today is not an easy task. With all these things we say, it confronts them. How do we begin to deal, or how do, let me start with Linus. You are a leadership consultant and you've been working with youth forever, young people forever. How do you tell them to deal with all these issues that confront them?
First thing I'd like to say is that I was only 19 years old when I started working with young people. And over time, my experience has really taught me that majorly, the young people are actually in charge of their own destinies. Yeah, because most of the times the policies are not really, helping young people as much as they should. So in that sense, young people will now begin to develop their own way of self-discovery. First thing first is self-discovery. The journey for self-discovery is a personal responsibility for young people. It's not the parent, it's not society. Young people must first of all, actually discover themselves. It is in the process of self-discovery. Once self-discovery is made, the journey for personal development begins. And this is my personal story of personal development where, there's no kobo in your pocket, but you have vision, you have things to accomplish, you want to be more. So instead of, going to seek for the money, you seek for how do I prepare myself as a young person.
Perhaps the first challenge would be, at what point do we even get the youths to that level? At what point do we get them to see things that way in the light of all kinds of pressure that surrounds them? How do we get the youths to that?
Necessity is the mother of invention. Necessity. When the environment you are staying in is difficult and challenging, one of the things that works in your mind is, how do I become different even within this environment? How do I stretch? How do I make it within the system? In fact, every young person right now, if you look at their hearts, there's anxiety, there's worry, there's uncertainty. But one of the things I want to advise young people to do is not to allow that uncertainty of this environment impact on them. That's why they need to take, charge of themselves immediately to discover who they are. And we have a lot of, thank God, it's an era of technology, it's an era of globalization where young people can easily, at least, have data to be able to, on their own, find their path.
Okay.
Like never before. Once young people find their part in what exactly they are connected to do, they can do well, then they can begin to stretch out and reach out to people, who have done what they are, are about to do.
Okay.
And once they begin to reach out that way, guess what? It's difficult, but at the end of the day, if they keep at it, stay at it, and are consistent over time, they will build something great out of their endeavor.
All right, Ms. Daniels, three things stand out to me. Mr. Okorie has talked about self-discovery, and then the word inclusion and mobilization all come to me. in terms of this conversation we're having? Is there a nexus?
Definitely, there is. I failed my math in SSCE.
You're not alone.
Now, I passed it in GCE with an A without cheating because my teacher, Mr. Amadi, said to me, Joyce, math is easy. He said it to me every day. Math is easy, math is easy. And he made it look easy until it became easy. So in mobilizing, in self-discovery, and in what's the other word you mentioned?
Inclusion.
Inclusion, we, the parents, the media, the leaders, will make it seem easy to the youth. We'll tell them we can, and then we show how. That's our responsibility to them. But when we constantly point out the troubles, the challenges, the difficulties, guess what? They find it more difficult to mobilize and to feel included. If we're going to create a system of inclusion for young, for women, for people with people who are underserved, we are going to make it seem easier. And when I say we, I mean all of us. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, I mean, in a way, because what I was thinking was, okay, so if a child if a young person, for instance, has not been able to discover themselves, how can we mobilize them enough to include them in the development process for a nation? Now, I also, those facts that Alero talked about in the opening, they are real and gaping. They are glaring. Everyone can see them. So sometimes, to an extent, it's a little difficult to talk to someone who is unwilling to listen simply because the person feels underserved. So how then do we begin that mobilization?
Well, I have an 18-year-old son. So let me talk about how I have been able to get him into the space. Number one, I speak his language. I communicate in language that he understands. So as it were, I come down to his level. I don't speak above him as if I were better than him, bigger than him. So I try to reduce that gap between us versus them, which is what a lot of youth feel, or how a lot of youth feel. There is us, don't talk at me, talk with me. So we'll speak in their language, okay? Then we also show empathy, that we understand what their situation is, because guess what? It's not, what's the word? It's not, the situation is not, there's a word I'm looking for. It's not exclusive to them alone. We, the older ones, have the challenges as well, and youth across the world. So we don't also want to make them feel like they are in isolation. It is all of us, and we are fixing together. So come on board, bring your intelligence. So we let them also bring solutions and make it clear that we are listening and we can work together so that we breach that chasm between us and them.
Mr. Okorie, how much is it, I don't want to use the word fault, of the family unit? I am feeling that on a large scale, we are the ones who have failed our children, which is the reason why we are talking about all this. Where does all the pressure come from? It comes because of the society which we as adults have created, in which the youth find themselves. They didn't create that environment in which they feel all this pressure that we're talking about, that drives them to drugs, that drives them to wanting to commit suicide and all that. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, so my engagement with young people over the years, I found out that, you know, most, you have families who do not encourage young people to do what they love to do, what they to pursue the courses in life they want to pursue, to pursue the dreams that they want to pursue. Most parents, will insist that young people should do courses that they have no business with. And imagine if a young man doesn't want to be a doctor and his father is forcing him to be a doctor. Most of the time when they get into the university, they are lost completely. And they just want to obey these parents, right? Because it forces them to, and so young people do not have the capacity most times to speak with their parents in a democratic way, whereby, they can state their minds. They always force them, shut up, you can't talk, that type of stuff. And so if young people are not given the opportunity to, experience love in their homes and the capacity to be able to speak their minds, so they move into their chef and begin to pretend, from home. And then the second element will also be the language that we use. Most of the time, parents use curses. We threaten them, but do you know that, the moment, young people start going through difficulties at the family level, and we use words to encourage them. Words are powerful. Oh, you can make it despite the challenges. In my own case, I had a situation whereby my father died when I was in class 3. My mother had 9 of us. I was left in government secondary school, Okorie, stretching to see how I could make it by myself in a world that was so difficult. What I did was that I had to find deliberately other mentors, people in my space who acted as my parents or whatever, who could encourage me. I can tell you about 5 of those people were useful to my life at that stage. I had one who will put me in his library, and I will be reading and stretching and growing. Now, if the family systems are failing, mentors can also fill in those gaps, as the case may be. Sometimes we must identify within our systems when our children are failing, and then we can reassure them that, hey, wait a minute, we allow you to do what you want to do. The moment a parent starts allowing our children to do the courses that they want to do, and then when they get into the university system, some of them want to study medicine, they are given microbiology to study, forced admission, and they go there and they have no interest again. So how do we correct this? The only way we can correct this is that, our family system will be the first place for leadership development. Parents must begin to seek knowledge on how to raise leaders in their homes. Any parent that wants to raise a great, leader or great children or great leaders must begin to seek for courses that would enable them become great leaders first. Because you can't what you don't have. Most of the time is leadership by example. It's the power of examples. When, parents begin to inspire by what they do, how they handle issues, the children will learn faster than you can ever imagine. But if you have, parents who are inconsistent, you know what I mean? And what happens is that at the end of the day, the children, most of the time, will not be able to go far. Okay. So when parents miss it, the social system must not miss it. And that's why it is the responsibility of government to not create a social system to ensure that they capture, these young people at a very early age and begin to inspire their minds to growth and productivity. Okay,
Ms. Daniels, I'm pretty sure you'd want to react to a thing or two that you've heard Mr. Okorie said, but if you can add to whatever you want to say in response to the fact that on the one hand is the function of family, but you would also agree with me that Nigeria as an entity is in a hurry for the youths to pick up the mantle of leadership, right?
Yes, I do agree with you 100%. I also agree with my brother Linus, whom I have known since his struggling days as an older teen. And I would say we turned out pretty well. The family is that start, yes. To add to what Linus said, the ability to speak life and speak positive can never be overemphasized. I say this because children hear from home before they hear from anywhere else. Say Nigeria no dey work. Say Nigeria no good. But if they constantly hear Nigeria can work, will work, if we do ABC, then they know what to do. The country is in dire need of young people to get into leadership. So that bridge is to say to the young ones, which is what people like Linus and myself are actively doing, talking to young people, including people like us, because we are young, and saying we can, and this is how. We can, and this is how. Yes, we know this is what you've heard all your life. Now look at it from this other perspective. Look at it from this other perspective. See what we can do here. See how we get involved. See how we negotiate. See what we need to learn. There are all sorts of institutions right now teaching about leadership and governance. Let's get involved. Let's pay fees. Some are even free. Let's get the information. Let's get in. Then we are also teaching courage and confidence. Because you might know a lot but not be able to do much because you lack the confidence and the courage. So we're teaching young people about how to develop confidence, how to develop courage. There is something called the power distance, where you can't even have a conversation with your parents because it might be misconstrued as talking back. So it extends to school, where you can't question your teacher. And in fact, if you write anything different from what they taught you, they go tell you, say, nah, lie, or this thing you did is wrong, right? And then you get into society and you're saying to somebody who is your leader, may I have this conversation? I'm like, how dare you talk to me? Am I your age? Am I your mate? So we need to teach confidence and courage to say, show up. Then we are teaching social skills so that we come in without fighting. The youth won't win by fighting the older people, because there is no us against them, in my opinion. We will get there and speak together as one. We're Nigerians first. Before you're young and I'm old, we were all born Nigerians. So let's speak as one.
But you would agree, Ms. Daniels, that to a large extent, if you can't give what you don't have. Many of the parents that you're talking about themselves are products of the same experiences that they are living out. So if that is the situation, consequently, you can imagine what will be bequeathed, so to speak, to the young people, to their children. So for such, for want of a better word, emotionally damaged young people who are groping for identity, to reference what Mr. Okorie said the other time, and really, really have everything to make this nation great. How do we begin to, put them back on the straight and narrow?
It's not a lost cause. There is healing. There is healing of hearts. There is the constant work of exposing them to possibilities. We've heard so many stories about people who felt everything was over, but when they saw better opportunities and they continued consistently to give attention to what could be, guess what? They were able to achieve more. So it's an ongoing work that will never end. So we are not only teaching the young people, we're also teaching the parents, because these relationships will always be. So we continue to speak, we continue to advocate, we continue to teach, we continue to train, coach, mentor, and we will not relent until we get what we seek. Because if we give up, then we lose completely. So in spite of it all, we continue to move. I call it move to the plus, move to the northeast, move to that place. When I say northeast, I don't mean Nigeria. I mean the place where between the x-axis and the y-axis, where you all have the plus sign on the graph. We keep moving to that direction where we can make it. How can we make it? We keep finding solutions, and then we keep showing them how we are winning already, how we are winning in entertainment, how we are winning in fintech, how we are winning in industry as young people in enterprise. So we will also win in governance the moment we begin to give more attention to it. We will. Okay. We will.
I'd like to meet Mr. Amadi. Maybe I'll also brush up my mathematics. But let me take Mr. Okorie. People see, and that's a great influence on leadership. I don't know if you'll agree with that. The young people see a lot. It's one thing to hear, but it's another thing entirely to see. And they see a lot of things. They see a lot of injustice, and they hear those affirmed and all of that. Consequently, they of course, you have seen spontaneous reactions in the nation. 2012, fuel price protests, end SARS, and so many others in pockets of areas across the nation. So young people see these things, these inequalities, and sometimes fuels their reaction. And you have talked about the function of government. in 10 years, the 18-year-old will be 28. What are the things that we need to do as a nation, talking about government now, whether federal or state, to ensure that we map out a path for this 18-year-old who will be 28 in another 10 years and hopefully be able to contribute positively to the nation?
So, you know, I run the most comprehensive leadership center in the country. And just a few weeks ago, an ex-senator of the Federal Republic walked into my center with his son and his wife, and they all took a leadership course together as a family. Now, at the end, during the process of that course, the young man was elected the president of his class, and the boy was just about 17, 15 or 17 years old. And that gave me the type of, you know, inspiration that I say to you today, that showing the child how to go is how is a bigger way to go. Secondly, as a nation, nations of the world have been able to make progress. Nations have invested heavily on the youth leadership capital of their citizens. If Nigeria must make progress in 10 years, there are 4 specific areas that I would like Nigerian government to do big things. First will be they give every young man in this country a skill. Not a 2-star skill, an 8-star skill. Create an infrastructure system that can give many of the young people who are not captured in the elite zone, who are in villages and communities, left out completely. Give them 8-star skills on technical education. Technical education. The plumbers. We should export young people from Nigeria to work in plumbers but there has to be 8-star skills development process for them. Millions of them can be trained in 10 years, and they will fill the entire West African region, and it will bring income for Nigeria. Second skill that is important for every young person is leadership skills. I was selected by the American government in 2013 as an IVLP. Every year, American government spends $180 billion to invest in different strata of leadership development in that country. If we don't teach the young person leadership skills, how to take responsibilities, how to have a vision, how to pursue vision, how to network, how to all the critical skills that are important to give him confidence and reassurance that despite of the environment, even mind leadership is an important course where despite of the pressures, the person can take leadership and do what is right. Despite of the peer pressure, the young person can lead his mind, lead himself, lead others, and pursue tasks. That's the second skill. The third skill is enterprise. We must teach young people that within this difficult environment, they can smell business opportunities. And there is a way to do business and do it right in an environment like ours. So those who are gifted to do business can thrive in that direction. The other element we can teach young people is love for nation. Love for nation. Anybody, any society that does not place value on teaching young people what a nation means to them, the value of their nation, the value set, by the way, what is the value set of our nation? Imagine if until we're able to even develop it to a point where every Nigerian will appreciate that there's what is called merit. There's what is called service. Service is important. Politics is not for personal pocket or aggrandizement. Politics is to serve humanity and make life better for other people. If we don't teach these things from a place of example, trust me, we will not be able to build a nation that will be sustainable.
Mr. Okorie, I was kind of sniggering when you were saying politics is for service, and that's what you teach these young people. How much example of that are they seeing to actually believe you?
You know, when I was talking to you about, there's something called mind leadership. Mind leadership is the ability to be able to deliberately, create systems in your mind that can interpret something differently. For instance, things are not working in the country. What do? You say, despite of the fact that things are not working, I will do it differently. Despite of the fact that I'm seeing some people stealing public money, but because of my mind leadership training, I will say that is not the example. And I will show leadership. Does that make sense? The ability for someone to say, despite of the fact that this person hates me, I choose to love this person. That is strength. That is powerful. Despite of the fact that some of our politicians are stealing public funds, when I become one, I will not steal public funds. Because you're teaching them what is right, what is proper. And when you do this type of investment, forget it.
Okay. Well, Mr. Okorie, when you talked about all those values, the only word that comes to my mind is national ethos, and a number of people are wondering, do we even have one yet? We have unity and faith, peace and progress in the nation as our motto, but how?
Words.
There are words. Are they ethos? Are they strong enough? But I mean, you've talked about youth development. Let me ask Ms. Daniels about youth engagement. Some would say that a major challenge we have in this country is that of communication. The largest demographic in Nigeria are young people, youths. So the question then is, and we have talked about the need to engage the youth population, to bring them on the table, as you said, speak their language. I mean, you've given your example as a parent. I don't know if government will be speaking the same language to the young people in the nation, the young population, youth population, as a parent would to a child 2, 3, 4, or 5, or even 10 or 20. So in terms of youth engagement, engaging the youth at the various levels of government and various tiers of government, what is lacking and what should we be doing?
What is lacking is the understanding of the need currently, this present dispensation, this present government. And when I say this, I speak generally. There are individuals within that are different, of course. This present leadership doesn't seem to show understanding for the need to include youth and speak their language. What can we do? Ayo, we can prepare for 2023 and be more intentional about the kind of people we let get into leadership space politically. When we are holding and insisting on media debates, for example, we will have to demand that if you're going to run for office to lead on any strata or lead in any strata, we want to hear you. Come, Channels is organizing a debate, everybody come here and speak, and if you don't come here, we will find a way. We have to find a way to say INEC or INEC. If they don't come to attend these debates, we can't let them be on political parties, because we need to hear them. We need to let them tell us what the plan is for the youth. We've not done that in the past, have we? We've not found a way to institutionalize it. My question to you right now, Ayo and Channels, is can we make it happen? Can we sign a contract with INEC, a social contract, to say everyone who we are going to let get on that ballot paper must be someone who can speak to us about the plan for the youth? Because for this present dispensation, I'm not sure what we can really do. They have shown constantly that there is no willingness to create that. So we will show empathy, we will speak the language, but we'll also choose the people who are willing to make this happen. Does this make sense to you?
Well, it does make sense to me. I don't know if it makes sense to INEC.
Thank you very much, Joyce Daniels, a social engineering practitioner, as well as Mr. Linus Okorie, a leadership consultant and an old friend of the house. Good to talk to you again, Linus, and thank you both for joining us this morning. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation in just a moment. Do stay with us.